Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Assalamu alaikum everyone and welcome to Divine Allegiance. I am your host Maulana Baig. Thank you for joining us. The month of Ramadan is approaching and we are talking about spirituality and how to prepare ourselves to better take advantage of the month of Ramadan. We all want to get ready, and this year is going to be special because we are not going to do our normal things in Ramadan. A lot of hadiths and riwayat we have regarding Ramadan, we see that how the Prophet and the Imams used to spend time of iftar at home and do these things which we are not used to, because we usually go to the masjid to do that and we are with the people, which is a good thing. But this year we will have a special time because we won't be going to a masjid or a center. They're going to be closed on specific orders from the president. But still, we look at this and see that it's not going to happen and we will be staying at home. So we'll take this time to truly look at ourselves and find ourselves and make ourselves move forward. It's the best chance we have, folks. And it's a special gift that Allah is giving us, the blessing of this month coming at a time like this. So we need to take advantage of that. We're talking about spirituality and how to improve ourselves and what it means. I went through that yesterday. Now, the question regarding spirituality is about fluctuations. A lot of people and a lot of good people try to do a lot of things to improve themselves. They listen to lectures, they read books, they practice, they do whatever they can do to purify themselves and to make themselves grow. And all these efforts are great. And one of the problems that they find in this movement is this fluctuation. By fluctuation, it means that one day you will be feeling like you're on top of the world, that everything is working out for you, that everything reminds you of Allah, that you feel a special humbleness. You are walking in grace. Everything that you do seems like blessed. And then the next day when you come, you see that you are miserable. Your life is a mess. Your mind can't even stay on Allah for a minute. Everything that's occupying you is dunya. So this is a fluctuation that many people experience in their spiritual growth. It is something that bothers a lot of people, and it truly makes a lot of people depressed, hopeless, and even give up their efforts to move forward. So it's important that we discuss this and try to understand this very well. I want to go into this and explain that. So that's one question, and I want to get to that question today. There's another question regarding Iman and Kufr. We'll get to that later if we have time. But this fluctuation, why does it take place and what's happening? Is it that, every time we go forward that we are being hurt by shaitan? Is shaitan pulling us down? Or is it our nafs, that we are losing our battle with the nafs and that, we are going backwards? Or what's the problem? That one week I feel like I'm on my way towards Ahlul Bayt, towards Imam Hussein, and the next week I see that, wow, where did I end up? And in whose army am I in? It's somewhat difficult for people to embrace and to understand. And just want to get into that so we understand that. First of all, my friends, this fluctuation that a lot of you might be experiencing, this fluctuation is a natural phenomenon. It is not something strange. It's not because you're bad. It's not because you're doing good sometimes and bad sometimes. No. It is a natural phenomenon that happens in flight. Let me read an ayat for you from Surah Fatir, that's the 35th chapter of the Quran, and ayat number 10. In that ayat, Allah says, Ilayhi yas'adul kalimut tayyib. Good words rise up to him, meaning towards Allah. They rise up towards Allah. Your faith is rising up towards Allah. Your kalima is rising up towards Allah. Wal amalu salih yarfa'uhu. And your good deeds are rising up towards Allah. You see, yas'ad means to rise up. Yarfa means also to rise up. The word for elevator in Arabic is known as mas'ad. Mas'ad from the root word sa'ada, which means to go upward, to rise up. So rafa'a yarfa'u also means to rise up. So these words Allah is using to describe that the movement of faith is from down towards up. It's an upward movement. And in any upward movement, when you are taking an upward movement, it's flying. It's a flight. You are going from the ground and you're going upwards. It's a flight. And there are two forces working here. One, for example, in actual flight, let's look at that first. In actual flight, you have gravity that's holding you down. Now, in order for you to fly, you need a force that will defy gravity and push you up. And hence, that force could be propellers, could be the aerodynamic force. Whatever engineering there is to make you fly higher, you need a force that can take you upwards. Because being down is natural. Staying down is gravity. Gravity, we all have to deal with gravity. It's what keeps us on the ground. Now, spirituality and spiritual growth works like that. You have a force that's pulling you down, and so in order to fly, there must be an external force that propels you to go forward. So faith is that force that is propelling you to go upwards, coupled with good actions. And everywhere Allah speaks about this, iman wa amal salihat. Not just the only thing, there are other things also, but still, you understand that these are the things that are propelling you to fly. And you are trying to defy the forces that are pulling you down, which is that part of our creation which is from the mud. Our nafs. It is pulling us down, and the root that Allah blew into us, I spoke about it yesterday, is what's pulling us upwards. So between these two is our journey. And our journey is a flight that takes place. And this flight that's taking place, as with any flight, you will know that when you start taking off, you don't just have one movement going upwards. You use that dynamics that's there to go up and then come down and then go up and come down. You just need to keep on going like that. You just can't go on a one movement going upwards, because if you do, the chances are you're coming down unless you have a very strong force pushing you up. But usually we don't have a strong force that's pushing us up. It's just the normal force that we have, that the engines that we have are not super engines. The engines we have are normal, ordinary engines, and hence, they are going up and down trying to get flight going. Make ourselves go upwards. So this flight that's taking place is our growth. And when flight happens, it's natural that as you go up, you need to take a break and then go up again, and take a break and then go up again. This fluctuation of going up and up and up, is a natural phenomenon that occurs in flight, in any movement upwards. This is the phenomena that many of us face in our growth. And the reason is because we don't have rocket propellers that just are so strong that just take us one way in one direction. Our flight is a gradual flight that we are trying to get up. And that's the reason that we need to recognize that. It is a growth in itself to recognize the fact that we are ordinary. We are not masoom. We are not infallibles. We are not super believers. That's different. We are ordinary. And hence our growth is like that. And this flight that's taking place is not just now, it's forever. We are going to be flying and growing forever because the goal is Allah, and Allah is infinite. And that's why don't be surprised about this. We're not just growing in this world. This is where we just learn to fly. The actual flight and the actual growth and the actual development takes place in the hereafter. That's where our real journey is going to start. Not here. This is only, we are just learning to fly here, folks. We are not going to fly a long way here. We are just learning how to get our wings going and learning to fly. Once we go past here and die and go to our next life, that is when the actual flight and the actual life will take place. Allah speaks about that in the Quran. He says, Inna dar al-akhirah lahiyal hayawan, that the abode of the hereafter, now that is the real life. That's where real life takes place. Real growth, real development takes place. Let me give you an example of that. The Quran is the book of Allah. Quran is the book of Allah. And He meant it for what? He meant it for us to learn it. At least to learn it. At what level, it doesn't matter. To learn it. Now, if a person applies himself to the learning of Quran and starts learning, goes to the Hawza, and starts taking classes, becomes a mujtahid, becomes a learned scholar, becomes the best scholars, becomes Allama Tabatabai. Can he claim that he has learned something about the Quran? Does a person like Allama Tabatabai claim that he has understood the Quran in any way? Has he scratched the surface? And he's way above us. I'm just giving an example of comparison here. Allama Tabatabai is like way up there. He has written a tafsir of the Quran, which is meant for scholars to research and learn. And he hasn't even scratched the surface of understanding. He will be the first one to admit it. I have no clue. And so here's the thing. Allah, if the best of us, when they try their hardest, aren't able to even scratch the surface of understanding the Quran, what was the whole idea of sending it down to us? What was the purpose behind it? If you know that we can't learn it here, what was it for? Do you really think that in the hereafter, in Jannat, we won't deal with it? That Allah sent it just for this world and that's it? And the only thing that we learned from it is to recite Surah Fatiha and one other surah so we can read in our prayers? Even if we are Hafiz the Quran, what does that mean? I mean, even the best scholars who know the Quran, they admit that they have no clue. They are nothing. Their knowledge of the Quran is nothing compared to what it is. And hence, what was it meant for? From there we understand that really the learning of the Quran, the true understanding of the Quran, we will start diving into it and truly get the pleasure of learning it, not here, but in an eternal life, because learning it takes an eternity. The knowledge in it is infinite. It's going to be eternal, and that's where we are going to learn it and get the pleasure of learning it. Not here. Here is where we just get familiarized with it, even at best. That's all. My friends, the real learning is there, and hence, the journey doesn't end when we die. Really, that's where it actually begins. In the Dar al-Akhirah, la hiya al-hayawan. That's when your real journey starts. That's when your real life starts. Your movement starts there. And that's where you'll be learning about Allah. And you'll get the pleasure of that. And you will get the satisfaction of knowing your Creator there. And for eternity, because, it'll take more than an eternity even to get even a small bit of understanding of an infinite Creator. So keep that in mind, that this journey that we have is not something that is going to end anytime soon. We're learning to fly. So when you're learning to fly and you're taking off, and that's what we're doing in this life, just trying to take off. So there are going to be fluctuations. Everyone has them. Maybe after a long journey of hard work and sacrifice and learning and grit and patience, and then on top of that, tawfiq from Allah, blessing from Allah, then we might be able to reach a place in this life where we find an atmosphere that probably we can cruise at, but still with turbulence. It's still with turbulence. It doesn't stop. It's going to keep on going. All right? So keep that in mind. It's really important for us to understand what this fluctuation is, where it's coming from. It's a natural part of growth. It's a natural part of growth. Allah wants us to go from dunya to akhirat. He made a field, a game structure here where the dunya is holding us down. And to get out of the dunya, we need effort. We need to put in effort because it is, because dunya is attractive. That's why, folks. Allah says dunya is attractive. Allah made it attractive. Allah made it attractive. Really, having relatives, family, life, adventure, excitement, all of these things that go on, the drama that goes on is all excitement. We get captivated by it. We get engrossed in it. That's what dunya is. That's what the life here is. And everything around us, we get into something or the other. It is attractive. Allah made it attractive for reason. If He had made it ugly and miserable and horrible, then you know what? Everyone will be waiting to die. Then flight would not have meaning. The reason flight of faith has meaning is because dunya is attractive. And to leave that is difficult. It's hard. And it was meant to be. So when we are dealing with dunya, that's what happens. This flight, as we go up, we see we are faced with challenges. We are faced with challenges. Now, for the only people who feel imprisoned here are real believers. Real believers feel imprisoned. We have hadiths regarding that dunya for a believer is a prison. Now, the reason it's a prison is because a believer has such a big personality, such a big existence and character, that dunya is a small place for him. And he feels cramped here. He doesn't have room to grow. Now, when we come and realize that, that doesn't mean us. That's real believers. That's a person like Imam Ali, alayhi salam. When Imam Ali finds himself in this dunya is a small place for Imam Ali. Now, for us, it's more than enough for our flight. But for Imam Ali, really, it's like he is much bigger, much greater than this. And hence, that's why that cramping takes place. But for us, we need to be humble about it. And we have to be humble about it that we're not that. We have to know that we are not all that great. And those who think they are, unfortunately, they are mistaken. We are just normal, ordinary people who are trying to fly and who are trying to learn how to fly. And there are, as we go forward, you see that these fluctuations happen. And these fluctuations are there so that you can go higher. There are opposing forces that come. And these opposing forces, like winds that blow into your face, as the higher you go, the winds get harder. And the push gets harder. And you get knocked down, knocked backwards harder. That turbulence becomes more severe. An attractive poem, I think it's attributed to a Muslim philosopher and thinker by the name of Allama Iqbal Lahori. It's attributed to him. Translation of it says, it's in Urdu, but the translation of that says that he speaks to the eagle, that the eagle, the bird, is, when it flies high in the air, above all the other birds. It's like all the way up there, right? So that eagle, that falcon that flies so high in the air, he speaks to that falcon. He says, don't be afraid of the winds that oppose you, that hit you in the face. Don't be afraid of these winds, because these winds are there to make you fly higher. That's beautiful. The idea is that these winds that we see opposing us in our life, it's just there so that our flight can be better, that we can go higher, that we can make ourselves greater. So fluctuations happen because it's the natural phenomena that takes place when you are flying, when you are taking off and going upwards. The upward journey from this world to the hereafter, from the earth to the heavens, from the nafs to the ruh. This journey that goes to the divine. This is a journey that is taking place, and we need to understand that this journey is what makes us fluctuate. So I hope that makes us understand the fluctuation part and how we go up and down. Don't be afraid of that. There is a question regarding, that when we do come downwards and we do get up, how is it and what makes us get up? Well, that there is another thing that has a relationship to that, which I will go in tomorrow. But I will end it right now with this. And the other thing, folks, is that as the month of Ramadan is coming up, we are going to be having all 30 days for Divine Allegiance. We will be having topics for every day, and we are publishing those topics. Today, in fact, I will have them up there for you all, and you can see the topics that we want to go through in the month of Ramadan. These topics some of them have been chosen by people, some of them have been chosen by me. I chose some of those topics, but relevant topics, things that have to do with us. And I said we will do our research and we'll bring out those topics in the month of Ramadan, and hopefully that will help us. So do keep us in your prayers. This has been Divine Allegiance, and I'm your host, Maulana Baig. Thank you for tuning in. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.